Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. My name is Jen Weber Hart, and I'm your host. This week, I am thrilled to introduce you to my friend Kelsey. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Kelsey and I have never met in person, which is kind of funny, but we were just talking before before we started recording. We met about a year and a half ago through a coaching program. Diana Davis is going to be a guest on the podcast in a couple weeks. But we took a program called Ascend, and I think Camp Clarity as well with her. Um, and I've been following Kelsey ever since. Last year, I had your calendar up on my wall.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
saw, yeah. But Kelsey, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm based in Bozeman, Montana. I'm an independent artist. I do fine art painting, commercial illustration, mural work, and tattoos. So those are kind of the four different tiers of all the things I offer, and that all shifts seasonally throughout the year.
Very cool. And when did you start? Well, I'm sure you've probably been an artist your whole life, but when did you dive into doing it as a business?
So I went to school for graphic design. So I worked full time as a graphic designer out of college for about 5 years, for a boutique media and marketing company. And then I think it was November 2015, I started doing that freelance with not much of a game plan. It was just a heart's desire to be devoting more time to my fine art work and creative energy and realizing that I could be doing this job from anywhere. So yeah, fast forward almost 9 years later. Uh, I've kind of morphed that throughout the years, taking on the projects that are more interesting to me, and then the muraling and tattoo work I started integrating within the last couple of years, just as a different challenge, and extension of all the things I was already doing. So it's all kind of organically evolved.
Very cool. I think I remember you talking about the mural work a lot when we were in Ascend, but I'll obviously link in the show notes your Instagram and your website and everything so people can see your art. But if someone asks you how to describe your style and your artwork, how would you describe it?
This is always hard for me to do. My work is very nature inspired. I also worked as a river guide for a number of years, and so spending a lot of time on the river and being in Montana, and all those landscapes have to offer. It's very infused with that. But I'd say my style is also has a sense of kind of, I call it magical realism, like referring to
Oh, I love
literature,
that.
that it has a sense of crossing between the real world and psychological world and our um the feedback and the human connection that we have with nature and our emotional responses. So that's kind of the more abstract explanation.
No.
The work's very colorful, a lot of movement, yeah, a lot of symbology as well.
Magical realism. I love that. That perfectly describes your art. There's a piece that I keep looking at on your site, that it's of the river, but it's a woman's body on like in, and I keep eventually I'm going to buy a print of it because I keep looking at it. I showed it to my husband. He's like, "Where are we going to hang that?" I was like, "I don't know, but we're going to because I don't know why that piece speaks to me so much." But let's talk about your river guide days. Are you from Montana originally?
I grew up in South Dakota. I moved
Okay.
to Montana for school when I was 18 and kind of never left.
Beautiful. Well, when I was 10 years old, my mom and I crossed the border from Wyoming into Montana and went and got a sweet tea at McDonald's so that we could say we had been to Montana. But this past May, I attended a retreat in Bozeman where I was hoping we'd have time to meet up. But that was my first like real Montana experience, and I get it now. Like I'm from Maine, and I text my husband and I was like, I love Colorado because of the mountains, but it's so brown here, like 99% of the time. And I felt like Montana was this beautiful combination of Maine and Colorado.
Mm.
I told Hannah when I was there, if my husband was like, let's move to Montana, I'd be game completely. So, how long were you a river guide for?
For about 6 seasons, I was on the Middle Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. So that was around 2017 to 2022, I think. So that, I mean, also something that I just very randomly fell into. Like it was about the same time when I had gone freelance and didn't know what the hell I was gonna do, and this opportunity arose as well. So it's like, okay, that seems like a good, um, I don't know, it was very much just a strike of lightning moment that I was like, oh, I'm meant to be here, and something that I
Mm.
always wanted to try. And so yeah, kind of pursued that simultaneously.
I love that. And how, when you went for freelance, what did your business look like at first? Where was the work coming from? What kind of work were you doing?
Mostly freelance graphic design clients, doing marketing, brand identity work, logo design and systems, as well as some illustration stuff. And at the time, I was nomadic. I was traveling in my camper around the Southwest, so trying to do that all from the road, which heard a lot about ups and downs. Like I've had my own ups and downs with that, and opinion on how that works. Um, but it was, and most of my clients were coming through word of mouth just from being based in Montana. And so I think that's what ultimately brought me back to this place, was because all of my friends, my business connections, everything just kept on like propagating in this specific area. So that's why I landed back here.
It's funny because I had never even heard of Bozeman before getting into Diana's world. And then there's so many of you in Bozeman from
Mhm.
her world that and I've worked with Sarah Lehman that's up there and obviously Hannah. And I was like, I have to go check out this town because it seems like such like a hub of just creative wellness, I don't nature-based humans.
Mhm.
So it's such a cool like I live just outside of Colorado Springs, which is beautiful, but there's not like the as much of a wellness community, I feel like, as you guys have. Like everyone I have met that's out of Bozeman is similarly minded, I would say. And it's such a cool place. So I understand ending up back there. Let's talk about your murals though, because I that's always fascinating to me. What was your first mural that you did?
Oh, I just I can't really think of what my first one was ever. I'd say one of my bigger ones was I got hired to do a map illustration of the watershed in central Idaho for a brewery. That was I think spring of last or winter of last year. Um, and kind of randomly, because I had done smaller map illustrations, and then I think with my work as a river guide, they found me and asked me to do that on their wall. So that was really cool. And then I guess within the last year or so, I did a couple of bigger ones. I did like a 65-foot mural on the side of a new a renovated residential commercial building, which is a whole learning experience in itself. And
Yeah.
then yeah, kind of just where I can find them, it's usually summertime work if they're
Mm.
exteriors. And it's been really fun to work on such a big scale.
Do people for murals, do they, I mean, I'm assuming for like the map, they probably knew what they wanted and
Mhm.
relatively, but most of the time, is that the case? They know exactly what they want, or how much creative license do you get on the murals?
No, not really. Like it depends. Some of the ones that are more funded by grants have a lot more kind of a specific process they have to go through. So,
Mm.
to like the ones I'm doing this summer for both the city of Bozeman and Missoula, they asked for a proposal in which I will provide kind of sketches of my ideas, and then kind of go from there. So it's very much like graphic design work in the sense of, starting from a 10,000 foot up view and narrowing it down to the final design and color palette and all of that. So it's very much a collaborative process, usually.
What is that? I mean, I'm not a physical artist at all. I cannot draw or do any of that to save my life. I've always been my brother is much more artistic. But how do you go from like painting something like let's say 8.5 by 11 or even a size that would be printed on a wall at home, how do you even scale something? Like what's that process like to actually creating the mural and figuring out dimensions and all of that?
It's a lot of back and forth between I mean, I do a lot on my iPad, so taking, like, a picture of the wall and kinda sketching it over the top of that overlay on my iPad.
Mhm.
Depending on the location, I've used a projector to get to then, like, trace that on the wall first. There's also you can also use certain grid methods or what's called, like, the doodle method, where you it's kinda hard to explain, but, draw a bunch of doodles on the wall, and that serves as your grid system, and then you overlay your design on top of that so you can see where the lines would fall on the wall. So there's a few different like methods you can use to scale it up. It seems like anytime I've just tried to freehand it on that big of scale, it turns out a little wonky. So it's a process for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and then, like, obviously every time it's a different size, it's a different that's incredible to me. I can't imagine trying to take a design and make it that big. And the murals that I saw in Bozeman, we have a lot of murals here in the Springs too, but there were beautiful murals everywhere in Bozeman. So I know you did the one in Idaho. Where else have you done murals so far?
Mostly, yeah, mostly just in Bozeman. And yeah, I'm looking at expanding that a little bit. Traveling for them creates a whole other kind of hurdle, but yeah, I'm doing one in Missoula this summer as well.
Nice. So you went to school for graphic design, but where did your love for artistry, for design, where did this all start? Take us back.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I always loved painting and drawing, as well as soon as we got, a very uh, early version of a Mac in my house was always on the computer doing designs as well. And I was like, by the time I was a freshman, sophomore in high school, I was already like freaking out. What am I going to do with my life? Because that's just my personality. Um, and was already like designing like, I would design T-shirts for my friends and posters for my friends, and just I think that validation really led me in that direction even more to receive, like, positive feedback for creating stuff for other
Yeah.
people. So that led me down the path of, graphic design, but and then in school, I was able to do all the studio art classes along with that, so, it was kinda the best of both worlds as opposed to going to a specific art school or program for just painting or illustration, necessarily, so it's kind of been a lifelong pursuit and a lot of practicality as well as
Yeah.
kinda following my heart.
Uh, what else? So murals, we'll get to tattoos, but what else are you doing in your business, right? Do you take custom or what's that side of your business look like? Do you create what's on your heart or do people come to you for custom pieces or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. As far as my fine art paintings go, I'll do commissions every once in a while. Most of my paintings are just yeah something that's from my own inspiration that I sell in galleries as well as my on my website and make fine art prints from those. And then I have a kind of a commercial illustration side, which is a little bit more yeah, custom pieces for businesses, a lot in the, like, conservation realm, for nonprofits, which is kind of my jam. Uh, and so they all those different mediums kind of interact with each other in that way that they're similar in how much I collaborate with people or don't. But for me, it's really important to keep that fine art side that I'm purely just creating what I want to create, and honestly, I'm in a mode where I want to be doing more than that and shift back to that, because it's to make a living as an artist, it's kinda like I'm taking what comes my way, so if somebody wants to
Totally.
commission a custom piece, I'm gonna take it, but yeah, so it's a balancing act to keep both sides going for sure.
Yeah, you said in the questionnaire when we were booking the podcast, I am incredibly passionate about conserving our epic playground. So let's talk more about like the nonprofit space and like how your art ties back to that, to your passion of our playground. And I love how you put that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been important to me to have some sort of purpose to my work. I think art can, serve as simply a beautiful piece that serves as inspiration on somebody's wall. But what really hits the sweet spot for me is collaborating with yeah, organizations that use my artwork to either fundraise, or like I've had them use my artwork as member gifts, different things like that that really serve a higher purpose. And I kind of went hard in that direction in conjunction with my guiding on the river. Um, and first of all, it's something that I love to do is play outdoors, and like saw how important it is to really protect these spaces. And so using my skill set in order to do that is really cool.
Do you have a favorite recent piece that you've done on the fine art side?
On the fine art side, it's so hard to think about. I'm actually working on a piece for my own house right now because I bought a house this last fall and I have this big wall, and it's the first time ever that I'm like creating a painting specifically for my space, and it's taking so long because it's my own self-commissioned project. But
Yeah.
it's a view that we biked the White Rim Trail in Moab last year, which is about a 100-mile loop. Um, and it was a view from one of our campgrounds in Canyonlands. So it's pretty extensive, but fun to dive into again.
I remember your buffalo piece is another one that I keep coming back to. I think Diana shared it on her stories when you finished. I mean, it had to have been a year ago at this point, but that's another one that like keeps speaking to me. Um, and you're right, like all of your work has this sense of like fantasy combined with nature, and I think that's what makes it so, and they're so colorful. I love all the colors that you use. Something I typically ask my podcast guests, and we obviously already have a sense of this, is but what keeps you going when self-employment is hard, when entrepreneurship is hard? Like, where's the fire come from to keep you going in all of this?
That's yeah, it is hard. I actually like side note, I did an interview for a magazine, and one of their questions was like, what would you tell somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, like
Mm,
be in the creative realm? And I said something like, it's not for the faint of heart. And they just being honest, and they cut
yeah,
the article, and I was like, I don't mean to be discouraging, but it's really like it's really not. It's a hard
yeah.
road to go down. And a lot of just like difficult to untie your self-worth with what you're doing. So when that gets hard, typically I just need to keep going in the sense of like kind of just push through, go through the motions until I find the fire again. Because if you sit around waiting for the fire to come, it's not going to come. So and that so I think over the years I've gotten more in practice of that, just knowing I need to sit down and do the thing, and then the momentum begins to pick up again. So it's that like tiny bit of willpower or just routine that will ignite it.
I think that that's so interesting that they cut that from the article, because I think that's so important. Like I told you before, again, before we started recording, I have started my own little networking group on Wednesday mornings. And the premise behind that and the premise behind this podcast is because entrepreneurship is fucking hard sometimes and it's lonely. And you're right. Like it sounds great, to set your own schedule and to be your own boss, but it takes a lot to make that happen. I know you and I are both part of Diana's community called Recess, and we were having a conversation in there about like scheduling and about the fact like for you, I think you mentioned wanting to go to the mountain when it's a great day to go snowboarding,
Mhm.
and what that does to your schedule. And it takes a lot that, like, okay, if I'm going to take this day to go snowboarding, or for me, like, if I'm going to take this day to go do yoga for the whole day or go up to Red Rocks or whatever, how do I adapt my schedule that I still get all the shit done that I need to get done? And you don't have a boss telling you to get it done. Like, you have to have this your own fire within you to make it happen. But I do think part of that, my dog just decided to bark behind me, is I have a 7-month-old puppy who has decided the couch is her playground right now, apparently. But is having this fire inside of you that even if you do take that break and pause, like you're saying, you have to just push yourself to find it again. Have since that conversation in recess, how has it gone with like scheduling and like that side of the business and calendar and all that fun
Well, that
crap?
like diving into summertime, it hasn't gotten any more clear. A struggle during this time of year. And I think that's part of it is just
Mhm.
acknowledging that this is a season to take advantage of and play and travel and visit people, like whatever it is, knowing that like the work will be there and you can pick it up again.
Yeah.
Not even again, but just like take a break. Um, and I think, I don't know, I think for me too, I'm not, because I think my graphic design days had me so conditioned to work with deadlines.
Mhm.
I will get the work done. So I think just trusting in that process a little bit for me is the biggest thing. Um, but I do function way better when I can be on a routine. And so that's, I don't know, it's a consistent struggle for me.
And then it's hard to figure out what that routine is. Like
Yeah.
Camp Clarity was great for me when it came to my calendar because I remember Diana telling us to schedule the things we want to do first. So like for me, that was taking my dogs for a walk and reading, like
Mhm.
putting everything aside to read. But it was hard for me because if I didn't do it at the exact time it was on my calendar, I felt like I had totally failed and I might as well throw the whole thing away and it's never gonna work. And I
Yeah.
remember Diana saying, like, so change your calendar to match what you actually did that day. And that sounds so simple, but like that's how we create a schedule that actually is working for us instead of against us. And I think even bigger than that is realizing every day is going to be different too. Like we did choose this path so we would have flexibility, so when we get so rigid in a routine, it takes away the like that piece of joy from being self-employed. Like I by the time this podcast is live, I will be done at my part-time job. So a big thing for me is that means my Mondays are going to be really open. I have one client meeting on Mondays, and my goal is to talk to that client to move his meeting to Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday because I want Monday and Friday to be meeting free. I want those days to be work days or like the Friday that I just want to go meet my best friend for lunch or take a long weekend and go into the mountains or and like to do the calibration Mondays or something where I don't like Mondays right now because they're full of meetings. So I
Mhm.
can take control of that soon and not have any meetings or maybe just the one on Mondays. And that's an empowering place. And that's part of why we go through all of this as self-employed is so we can. And then my calendar was starting to strangle me this year. And it's been blocking off time that I don't want to work. Like this week, we're recording this on July 3rd. So it's 4th of July week. And I was messaging with my best friend and I was like, why am I taking so many meetings this week? So I already went in my calendar for next year and I blocked off the week of 4th of July so that like I'll still work, but it won't be full of meetings.
Uh-huh.
So um, there's so much power in just taking control of our calendars.
Yeah, it took me a long, long time to get there and I'm still figuring it out, but say like more or less same. Like to finally get to the point where I realized, oh, I don't have to have meetings on Monday or do stuff
Yes.
over the holidays or like it's again like it's not going to be a big deal if you meet that person the following week or whatever it is. Like this is the whole reason, not the whole reason, but like a good chunk of the reason why we work for
Yes.
ourselves, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody, he's in the mortgage world, but he said something like, there's power in being busy too. Like there's power in not being like if someone wants a meeting, there's power in the fact of showing them a calendar that's pretty booked
Yeah.
because unfortunately that is a kind of a sign of success in our culture is busyness, which I hate, but there's truth to it. Like if I am available 10 minutes from now to take a meeting every single time you want,
Yeah.
that also creates a bad relationship with clients to begin with. Like they can wait a day. Like
Mhm.
nothing that we do is an emergency that can at least wait 24 hours.
Mhm.
And once you get to that point, especially when I started my business, I was always accessible. And like the best signal of that is like my Google hours were set to always open. And that's really how my brain worked is I was always available.
Mhm.
And now I'm not always available. And my clients respect me for more for it. And I just respect my business more that way
Mhm.
too. Let's
Hmm.
talk about tattoos, because I am so sad that it didn't work out for me to get a tattoo while I was in Bozeman. And it was so funny because I was like, what would I want Kelsey to tattoo for me? And I was like, literally whatever you wanted. I would be like, what? And I was talking about that this morning too. And I was like, I just love your art so much that I think I messaged you and I was like, I'll give you some ideas, but literally I don't care. Whatever you want to tattoo on me." When did you start tattooing? What has that looked like in your world so far?
I started tattooing, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't have an official apprenticeship. I had a mentor who actually was in Colorado, had a shop in Colorado Springs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's closed now, but yeah, he's now in Denver. But he kind of taught me from afar, or he guest at spot in Bozeman every once in a while. And so like kind of taught me from afar and gave me some of his old equipment. So I started kind of like, it's frowned upon in the tattoo industry, but kind of started on the underground, just tattooing friends out of my house for a long time. And then this past fall, I officially got the license for my studio. I have a studio in downtown Bozeman, so I just do. So that's when I started doing it more professionally and opening it up. More. So it's all by appointment, custom only tattoos, and I really like that. And I haven't been advertising it too hard because I like that it's been this like growing word of mouth because I think it attracts the right people or people who have been maybe following my work for a long time and ready to get something from me. So it's been really cool to
Uh,
offer that. Yeah.
and it's all like me. I was probably in the work. I'm like, just tattoo whatever you want. Like, what do people typically come to you with for ideas? Is it really abstract ideas that then you create something, or do a lot of people know exactly what they want, or what's that? What's that looked like?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think some are more in the realm that you're saying that they just like my work and have maybe a few themes that I'll design something for them, and some are like way more specific. And I've kind of been I don't know, just working with whatever anybody wants. And I think my goal for this next year is to really steer it in the direction of things that I really want to be tattooing more of. I hope to get more just like flash designs and customs or designs that people can just select.
Yeah.
That I think will help steer it in the right direction. But I think especially while I was learning, I'm like, let's do it all. And so I think I'm finally narrowing in on the style that I like and want to pursue more.
Yeah. And I mean, your tattooing, obviously, that really goes along with your fine art. Like it's all a similar style, but you've done some really cool pieces recently that I've seen on Instagram too. But what do you want to primarily be doing? I mean, I know during the summer you're doing murals, but out of murals, fine art, tattoos, like what's the future of your business look like? Do you want to continue like a third going to each, or where's your passion lie? What do you love?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been trying to figure out as well. Because I'm like, where do I put my efforts in? I think like I feel like with tattooing, I'm on to something, and I really just am ready to double down even more on that. So I think after probably like I'm yeah booked with both murals and travel through the summer, and then hope to just dive deep back into tattooing in the fall. I think my dream would be to mostly support myself with the tattooing, and then being able to paint, just do my fine art on the sides of that, or like in conjunction with that.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I don't know, maybe still do the odd mural here or there, but maybe just like once or twice a year. Kind of is kind of the vision I'm seeing. I think just for my own sanity, I keep trying to whittle down my offerings, and it's hard because I'm interested in everything. So
Yes. Yeah. I remember when we started in Camp Clarity and we started talking about like offerings, and I was like, well, if some at that point I was like, I was still kind of a virtual assistant more than a creative strategist. And I was like, if someone comes to me and wants something done and I can do it, I'm gonna do it. Like,
yeah,
uh, and I mean, there's beauty in that too. I still don't think I really have a good grasp on my sweet offerings. But it's also nice, like when you, again, what we were talking about, like when shit gets hard, to bounce between things and like find your
Mm.
inspiration again. Like I imagine if a mural gets overwhelming to be able to have that escape into fine art or do a tattoo for someone or like be able to have a different avenue to get that fire going
Mhm.
again and keep this going. Um, what besides the fact that it's not for the faint of heart, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to be a full-time self-employed artist?
I think a big thing for me was getting help, getting the business coaching. I kind of bootstrapped things for, I don't know, 7 years or something before I finally was like, okay, how do we actually structure a business? And so I think learning the business side of things is just as important as the artistry, as well as having a few different ways that people can plug into your work, the product suite or buy your work. If I was trying to just survive off of selling my fine art paintings, it would not be going well at this point. And
Yeah.
so I think having, prints at a price point um that is affordable for people, as well as the super high end, like top tier murals offerings, has really helped keep me going and like keep my income steady. So, and because all that stuff really does, it is pretty seasonal. And so I've learned that over the years too, that it ebbs and flows. And so I think being able to have at least a few different offerings as an artist is really important.
Something that I love you've been doing, and I want to say my background on my laptop is one of your paintings that you sent out in
Oh,
one of
cool.
your newsletters. And I think it's like the December one. It was like one of the first ones. And I love that you've been doing that. So it's a monthly newsletter, and there's a desktop background and a phone background that's one of your paintings. But like it's such a simple one, it's beautiful. Like I don't see my desktop that often because I always have 6 million things open on my computer. But when I do, I'm like, oh, there, or like when I'm unlocking my laptop, I think of you every time I see your art. And from like a business side, I think that's incredibly smart too, because you're staying top of mind as an artist too. Um, did you just start that in like December, January, or had you been doing that and I missed it?
No, I don't know. I think I started doing it more consistently last year in the interest of offering a freebie. And quite honestly, I didn't think anybody would care or use it. And then I've gotten like a ton of signups, and people love free stuff. And like you said,
Oh,
just to have that at top of mind, to get somebody to download that and put it as your phone background or desktop background, like, oh, easy. Like that is something that I can offer. And I have a catalog of paintings that it's not hard to just choose one per month to send out. So it's, yeah, it's
how do you
really.
pick which one you send out each month?
Oh, it depends. Like, I at least try to have them aligned with the season, and uh I don't know, just kind of what I want to like push as prints as well.
Mhm.
And it's been pretty, I don't know, on a whim, honestly.
Yeah, I love it because it's just a simple. I am awful at my newsletter. I don't think I've sent one since like March. But if I could think of like an easy freebie like that, like that's such an inspiration just to get it done too. And that's getting like I think newsletters are coming back from a business side. I think people for a long time were not opening email newsletters, but people are getting tired of social media,
Yeah.
especially during an election year. And the biggest reason that people unsubscribe from a newsletter is because they don't remember who you are. So
Mhm.
consistency and having that once a month, like I'm gonna send out this freebie. And for you, it's the desktop backgrounds, which is genius. But like for any business owner, if you can think of a simple freebie, like my goal, and I'm gonna voice it, so maybe now I'll do it, would be a free, very simple social media plan for for 2 or 3 posts a week that I could send out every month.
That's
Um,
great.
it's just a matter of making that happen. But
Uh-huh.
I think that's so smart because then, I mean, people look for it too. Like every month, I'm like, oh, there's Kelsey's, even though I have not replaced. I think it was December's that is my background still. Um, but I still look at them every month, which also gets me over to your website, which, there's SEO benefits there too. So I would say to our listeners, if you're not doing a newsletter, I highly suggest it. People want to hear from you, but don't be like me doing it like once every 4 months because then people will forget who you are.
I know it's
Uh,
funny that we're talking about this because it's like July 3rd, and I just realized this morning, I'm like, oh, I didn't send out my freebies. I like keep meaning to schedule ahead of time. I'm like, "Oh, it's the first." I don't 'cause yeah, anyways.
But you'll get it done. You'll get it
Yeah.
done. It's fine. I'm gonna wait for it. Maybe I'll finally replace my December background on my computer. But what's next? And what are you looking forward to the rest of the year, or, just finding the balance between everything, or do you have any really cool projects coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it a little bit. I'm ramping up I go to Missoula next week to do a mural on their downtown Missoula Foundation building, and then directly after that, I'll be painting downtown Bozeman. So big public art projects, which is fun. And then like going on a river trip in August and playing a little bit more. So I'm just kind of excited for that. It'll be a balance of working my ass off for a few weeks and then more playtime in August, and that's ideal.
I imagine that like that playtime also is such a great inspiration for your work too. Like, I think
Oh,
it's
100%.
important. So,
And trying to figure
uh,
out with my accountant what all of that is considered a write-off or not. I'm like, well, if I paint
I
rivers.
mean, right? If you paint the river that you go play on, does that count as a business write-off? Sure, right? Uh, all right. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you if they want to buy fine art, if they want to book you for a mural or a tattoo? What's the best way to find you?
Either my website, kelseysintars.com, or I hang out on Instagram a lot. So either following me there or messaging me. Also, my Instagram handle is kelsey'sintars, which, yeah, you can get the spelling of my name, I
I'll
guess.
put it in
Through
the show
the
notes. Don't
podcast.
worry. Don't worry. I will put it all there for everybody. Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure, Kelsey. Thank you so, so much. I was saying this morning, like, we've known each other for a year, but I was just looking forward to hearing more about how you got into doing what you're doing and what's next for you. And it's on my list. I will get a tattoo by you eventually. Someday, either you're going to be in Colorado or I'll be back
Yeah,
in
let's do
Bozeman.
it.
Yeah, for sure. But for those of you listening, if you want to find out more about what I do as a creative strategist, you can reach me at jen@jensway.com, two N's on Jen, or also on Instagram is where I hang out, Life Jen's Way. Or if you want to be a guest on the podcast or know somebody that should be. So thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate you so, so much. And for all the listeners, I'll see you next time on your next business bestie. Have a great day.